Hey, this is April, and this show discusses psychedelics. It's intended for audiences 21 and over. Also, I am not a medical expert. If you are looking to engage with psychedelic substances, please consult your physician before doing so. Welcome back to the show. This is your host, April Pride. For those of you who've been with me for a while, you've watched me build and rebuild more than one brand. That's part of how my mind works. I was diagnosed with ADHD later in life, and one thing that comes with it is momentum. New ideas that need a name and a shape almost as quickly as they arrive. This spring, after years of building brands, I got hit with a cease and desist over the name of my most recent brand, Set. My lawyer thought we could win, but winning would have cost more than the brand was worth. I made a decision that turned out to be the right one. I stopped building around a product name and started just being me, talking about the stuff I want to talk about related to women in midlife who are figuring a lot out for the first time and are open to psychedelics to support that journey. This episode kicks off a full month dedicated to psychedelic-informed wisdom for people over 50, delivered by psychedelic-informed people over 50. With a real focus on what women specifically are navigating in their later decades. Today's episode is part of that work. This is a live recording of Psychedelic Salon, a monthly series I host, featuring Symes, a psychedelic guide and integration therapist who has spent 45 years supporting women. First as a social worker, then as what she calls a modern medicine woman. San doesn't come to this from clinical research. She comes to it from decades sitting with women in ceremony and from her own reckoning with trauma she didn't name publicly until she was 42. Tonight, she's talking about ancestral wisdom, internal family systems, the trauma of the overproducer, and what integration actually requires. Be sure to check the show notes for links to Town Hall Seattle, which is going to go live with Psychedelic Salon Seasons tickets this week. Here's my conversation with Symes, recorded live at Town Hall, Seattle.
Hi. Good evening. It's nice to see everyone. I'm April Pride, and I'm delighted to welcome you tonight to Psychedelic Salon. When I first conceived of this event, the intention was to explore this intriguing intersection of psychedelics, female hormones, and women's overall well-being, with the goal, as always, of looking at evidence-based inquiry, looking at the answers that we might be able to find through science of how women are using psychedelics to improve their lives. What I found was pretty thin. I started looking at the current scientific literature and consulting with experts like Dr. Darcy Constance, who was here with us last month talking about depression. And what I found was crucial in that the headlines that we all are reading surrounding women in psychedelics or women's health in psychedelics are really not supported by the rigorous clinical research that we need to be able to make definitive decisions and to use that information to inform clinical practice. So even providers are really left trying to figure this out. Yet, with the absence of concrete science, I don't want to diminish the potential that these substances do hold for women. And where the science falls short, there's this space for faith and for lived wisdom, knowledge that's gained through guided practice and experience. So that's a little bit of context in terms of why tonight's programming has changed and why I invited Symes to join us. Sand, as introduced, has been working as a psychedelic guide for decades and supporting women in their experiences. Her wisdom comes not through theory or clinical research, but through deeply personal, spiritual, and embodied experiences. And her insight illuminates these pathways of healing, sovereignty, and empowerment that the science just really struggles to present to us. I'm really happy to have you here. Thank you so much for coming to Seattle. Thank you.
I want you to know that women, men, they, Me that have been in the underground for so long, coming out is scary as fuck, right? It really is, because you're always checking who's listening, who's open, who's curious, who's willing, who's going to ask the question that's going to make me dry in the mouth. So beyond the science, what are the sacred truths that I've picked up for women? 45 years now, in so many different places, in women's prisons, in substance misuse centres, as a social worker, had lots of different experiences, supporting community. Who am I? I'm a mum, I'm a grandmother, I'm a sister, and I'm a daughter. And then I'm a shamanic practitioner. I am not a shaman, big difference in that. I'm a modern medicine woman that came to psychedelic medicines and sacred medicines over 25 years ago. And through sitting with beautiful, dear teachers and mentors over all the years, it took me 13, 15 years to claim the words modern medicine woman. I'm very reverent of the medicines and the teachers on this planet. As a shamanic practitioner, in essence, it just means that I'm a deep knowing inside of me that we really aren't separate on this planet. And yet we live our lives most of the time in separation. Separation from ourselves, separation from this beautiful earth, and separation from each other. I'm a psychedelic integration therapist because I was once a social worker. I've sat in over 150 ceremonies, assisted in 70, and facilitated over 60. And it's not a numbers game, it's a learning game. Every time I sit with medicine, she's my most profound teacher. And I sat with her right from the very beginning because I was drawn to her to deal with my own trauma. As a social worker, my trauma got buried in the incredible trauma that I was dealing with every day as a social worker. So I denied my own trauma and my own physical abuse as a child. With all the training that I'd had in trauma, I was 42 before I used the A word publicly and said I was abused as a child. It's very deep, our layers. I came to the medicines because I knew I carried abuse in my body. I'd been in and out of therapy for about 10 years, and the therapy was brilliant, and I'm not denying therapy at all. I still go back to therapy. I've got an incredible therapist. But the therapy didn't seem to be getting to the place that I needed to go to, which was in my body. So the talk therapy helped, and it gave me frameworks. And I was able to go back into time through EMDR and doing different exercises with my therapist. But I couldn't break the patterns that I was still carrying. And I couldn't break them because I knew somehow, and especially when I started to train in breath work, and I knew Basil van der Kolk, the body keeps a score. When he talked about it in terms of the tissues and the lymphatic and the nervous system, I needed another framework, and I'll introduce you to the next framework shortly, which was IFS. So with Basil's work, the body keeps a score, and internal family systems, and these sacred medicines, that's when I really started to find the parts of me to go back without the amygdala being fired up. The amygdala holds all of our memory of fear. So with the beautiful sacred medicines, can wrap around the amygdala. I call it chicken soup for the soul.
When San talks about the amygdala being lulled to sleep, she's onto something. The amygdala is the part of the brain that stores fear memory and triggers the fight, flight, or freeze response before the thinking part of your brain even catches up. That's established neuroscience. What's less settled is how psychedelics interact with that system to make old memories feel accessible without the same charge. Researchers are still mapping the exact mechanism. What clinicians and guides like San describe consistently is a window where a person can revisit a memory and stay present instead of getting flooded by it. Whether that's a medicine quieting the amygdala directly or something more complex is how fear and memory get reconsolidated. In how fear and memory get reconsolidated is still being studied. Either way, the felt experience Sand is describing, getting past the guard dog to reach the memory itself, tracks with what trauma researchers have documented for decades.
And they can put her to sleep long enough so I could creep past her, get to the place in my childhood where I'd got calcified parts of deep-rooted trauma. And it was those parts that the 2-year-old, the 13-month-old, the 5-year-old, I could get to those parts and pull those parts out with conversation whilst I was in the medicine. And that was a game changer. And that started happening for me about 25 years ago. So when I had my first medicine journey, when I sat with ayahuasca for the first time, 2 things happened for me. The first one, the medicine, the mother said, if you want to know your trauma, then you have to understand where it comes from. And so that journey was a most powerful journey where she took me not just to my trauma, but to my father's trauma, my mother's trauma, my sister's trauma, my brother's trauma, grandmother, grandfather, great-grandmother, great-grandfather, and it went on. Then it split into another lifetime. And I started to see the trauma from that lifetime. Then it split again, and I found trauma from a different lifetime. Is that possible? When you're in the medicine and I started to then apply the medicine's wisdom in my life, I realized that was truth. What also happened in that ayahuasca experience was in that ceremony, 45 of us were talking about really profound trauma in the body, in the mind, in our physical, mental, emotional systems. And then after being wide open, split, shattered, we all walked back on the streets and had no further support. The magister is in the integration. The medicine just helps us remember who we really are. The integration is the applied wisdom of that in our life. She took me to my ancestors and awakened a gift that I'd had since I was a little girl, which is a gift that is known as a seer. And so I could see patterns and shapes and everything looked more colourful than the 3D reality. An experience at 7 years old where that gift was shut down because I was in danger. The people around me in my life didn't understand that gift. So in order to safeguard further abuse in my life, the spirit and the ancestors said, okay, now's not the time. Let's come back to her when she's 31. And it did, with a vengeance. So in my ancestral wisdom, it really is a centerpiece what I do with my work. And the very first time I sat with ayahuasca and she invited me to be with my own ancestors in many different lifetimes, and then gifted me what she called an ancestral altar, which really meant being with these beings that visit me all the time. They have been the most profound guides in my life. So why ancestors important and why for women is it more important? When as women we know we carry stories, we carry narratives. We can't speak up, we can't show up, and so we have suppression in our bodies that our brothers don't carry in the same way. I'm not saying my brothers on the earth don't have suppression in your system. You absolutely do. But women, we've been carrying suppression longer in our system, and we've only just started to get a seat at the table. And when women get a seat at the table, just as I'm standing up in front of you tonight, it takes so long for us to find the fluid wisdom inside of our womb space, our sacred waters, from the womb all the way up to our larynx and speak. So when you say to a woman, what is it you want? Her journey of finding what it is she wants is thousands and thousands of years. She's telling you she's got to get through thousands and thousands of years because nobody asked her that question. And when you do ask her what she wants, then she's got to find a response to that. Not only do I not know what I want, I don't know how to articulate it. I don't know where my needs are. Because she's got to get past these calcified parts that are inside of her, the younger versions of her 2-year-old, her 3-year-old, that little 5-year-old girl that's calcified inside of her system. And whether it's from abuse or being shut down or running home one day with a painting from school, mum was too busy to look at it, and boom, there's the shutdown. That 5-year-old little girl, as we know, internalized shame. One of the other places that I get a lot of my beautiful information from is through this incredible framework, Internal Family Systems. A beautiful way of not getting buried in our stories of shame or our stories of guilt. One of the most profound frameworks of being able to allow people to find these calcified parts of us that have been buried somewhere in the past. It's called unburden them. And in the case studies that I'm going to share with you shortly, you're going to find some of the parts and how they bury themselves and how we actually unburden them in this work. One of the ways that I really want you to see ourselves, and the sun medicines and moon medicines came in a very profound Wachuma ceremony that I had in Ecuador about 15 years ago. Wachuma is San Pedro, is cactus, and this beautiful teaching came through from the medicine when I wanted to know about my righteous anger, about my trauma. And the medicine said, very simply said, in order for you to know yourself, just like you would never know the moon without the sun, same. So you have sun medicines. I call them our Facebook medicines, Instagram medicines. There are medicines that we want everybody to know. It's our kindness and joy and all the things. And they're true. They exist. You have those medicines inside of you. But if you really want to know who we are, and especially through sacred medicine work, then there is an opportunity to come again to the edge and find out where some of our moon medicines lie, that lie in the shadow, that we don't want Instagram or Facebook to find out about us. It's the rage, it's the guilt, it's the shame, it's the envy, it's the frustration, it's the disappointment. It's all those places that we have really worked fucking hard to hide. So they get buried inside. And these parts that hold these moon medicines are waiting for us, should you choose to come into medicine work. And I bet there's about 80% of this audience who are already doing medicine work. But this was a beautiful teaching. And in order for me to know myself, I had to go many times into the medicine to see my own shadow and find out if I'm going to ever point a finger at somebody else, then the medicine always brings me back to myself. The lifetimes that I've had where I've been the persecutor and the persecuted. I come out of a medicine journey, and as I said at the beginning, this is an applied teaching. It's an applied wisdom. So the medicine day isn't the wisdom. The medicine day is the remembrance. The wisdom comes in the lived experience, in the integration afterwards. When I used to catch myself wanting to point a finger and judge somebody, it was like, oh, there it is. That one that wants to point a finger because she's not ready to look at that part of herself, or she sees herself in that other person but is in denial about seeing it in herself. So the work that can be done through these medicines is not just around finding our places of PTSD and trauma, overwhelm and stress and anxiety, which it is, but it's what holds the anxiety, the PTSD, the overwhelm and the trauma. Who really is holding that in our body? And it isn't you. It's a part of you, but it isn't the whole of you. So sun medicines and moon medicines were a beautiful teaching that I got. You're not broken is one of the biggest, nobody's broken. This sacred work really is, everything to me is about remembering my shadow, remembering my light, remembering the places when somebody once did this to me and got me sitting in a room and gazed into somebody else's eyes when I was that woman on my own. And I hated that moment, and then dropped in and couldn't stop sobbing because I saw so much beauty and grace in the partner that had had the courage to also come to that event by themselves nearly 30 years ago. We all carry ancestral wisdom.
Internal Family Systems, or IFS, is the framework Sand keeps returning to and shows up repeatedly in psychedelic integration work. Developed by therapist Richard Schwartz in the 1980s, IFS treats the mind as made up of multiple parts rather than one fixed self. Protector parts, exiled parts carrying old pain, and what the model calls the self, the calm, curious core underneath all of it. It's a mainstream clinically used therapy model, not something invented by the psychedelic space, though psychedelics seem to make those parts easier to access and speak with directly. When Sand describes a 5-year-old part waiting in a corner or a part that wants to point a finger at someone else, that's IFS language for a part carrying something unresolved. The goal isn't to get rid of these parts. It's to build a relationship with them, which is exactly what Sand means by unburdening.
So these are some case studies, and then we're going to go to Q&A. And I wanted to end with these case studies because it's going to hopefully tell you a little bit about how trauma internal family systems, body keeps the score, and these beautiful medicines bring out these parts of us in a safe and deeply loving environment. I chose these 3 women. These are real, beautiful souls. The first one met the divine within herself. So this beautiful woman had been part of religious trauma for 35 years. And when we started to work together, the deep-rooted shame in her body, she'd born 2 beautiful daughters, and yet she had this deep-rooted shame that was stopping her in her business, in her world, in her purpose, in her marriage, in herself. So when she said, in the deep throes of the medicine, I am God, the trauma that started to move through her body was quite exquisite. And if anybody understands trauma release exercises, when the body starts to move trauma and we start to shake, and then the body goes in a very beautiful way of how the body knows. So it allows us, by shaking, and the tremors of trauma start to move through the physical body. And she moved through her traumas for several hours, stopping and starting. And she realized that the words that she'd spoken, which so many parts of her in her story were blasphemous. How can I ever say I'm God? And found the very core of her that she is the divine and I am God. 2 years later, her sensuality, her sexuality in herself, as a mum, as a woman, in her marriage, in her business, is thriving. And the way that this woman moves now, her hips, she glides through a room instead of being shut down, and all the somatic body experiences that we have, these shapes and these patterns that had her believe that she wasn't the divine. And it was through the eyes of the photograph of her daughter, she said, I am the divine. She found that deep part of her. The second one is this beautiful soul that she also had 2 daughters, and it was the eldest daughter, who was 5 years old, who came to her in the ceremony and sat with her and said, Mum, why are you not letting us see your 2-year-old? Our sister is there, this 2-year-old that had been blocked because of her trauma. And she said, we just want to play. Her beautiful daughter sat in front of her, 5-year-old, pulling out her 2-year-old self and saying, I want to play, come play. And that also sent tremors of trauma through her body for quite some time. And now this woman, 2.5 years on now, deeply wired tech industry, overproducing, has found that in her body, in her life, she's found the sacred pause. And she talks to her 2-year-old every single day. Last one, this sister had sat with me after 8 years of therapy, couldn't get to her, and again, super, super clear here, especially to my therapist sisters and brothers and they in the room. Therapy is great, we need it for sure, so thank you, I love you. This sister couldn't get to where she needed by the talk therapy and some somatic work she'd done in EMDR. And she also came and she was burnt out, numb, meeting her 6-year-old self, again the traumaed one, the 6-year-old self in ceremony, hidden, and the descriptions that these beautiful souls give you, they tell you where they are. They describe the wallpaper on the room from 30 years ago, 40 years ago. They tell you what was on the stove that was cooking because they can smell it. And they go right back to that place. And she brought this 6-year-old who was waiting for her, hidden in a corner. And the words that this 6-year-old said was, I've waited for 30 years for you. Where have you been? I'm here. I don't want to be here anymore. And again, she brought her back. So in that voice, and 5 years on now with this beautiful soul, 5 years on, she continues to be incredible, loving, strong advocate for women. The last piece of trauma I want to say before we move on is the trauma. It was like the devil wears Prada, right? But the devil wears Prada is this, the trauma that wears mascara. She holds so much till she can't. And this is a trauma now that's finally being really seen for what it is. And it's the trauma of the overproducer. It's the trauma of the woman that is so successful that she's got all her shit together, she's got it all zipped up, she's super successful, she's got the husband, the partner, the kids, the goldfish and the mouse, right? So she's got all of these incredible pieces of her life, and nobody would say that she's got trauma, but it's the trauma inside of her system that can't have this woman stopping. If this woman stopped, a part of her she would believe would die. I can't stop, because if I stop, I might have to face that part of me that I don't want to face. So I'll keep going for the promotion. I'll keep going for the productivity. I'll keep going. I don't want to come for a sacred pause because I don't want to find out what's inside. But this trauma, this overdoing trauma, is there. And we're going to find out a lot more about it in the next 2 or 3 years. Terry Cole is a great author and a speaker on this subject. The women that really are overproducing because it is a trauma response, it isn't about success. So I wanted to end this part of my connection with you. Remember, this is not a talk. I hope for you and I it was a place to remember. And I really thank you, as I said, from the bottom of my heart, for letting me sit with you, your ancestors, and all of your parts tonight. So thank you so much.
What San just named, I hear a version of it constantly in this community. The trauma of overdoing doesn't look like trauma. It looks like competence. It looks like the woman managing her career, her household, her aging parents, and everyone's emotional temperature at once, and getting praised for it the entire way. That praise is part of what keeps the pattern locked in place. For a lot of us, especially women raised to locate our value and our usefulness, stopping doesn't register at rest. It registers at risk. Terry Cole's work is worth a look if this landed for you. Terry Cole's work is worth a look if this landed for you. I'll say plainly, this isn't a personality trait or a productivity problem. It's a nervous system that learned early that stillness wasn't safe. Recognizing that is different from resolving it, but it's the first honest look most of us ever take.
Thank you, Sand. It's my favorite part of the night, no offense. I love the Q&A. I love to know what you're thinking about, what Sand's remembering, has brought up for you. And we do have a mic here. You can also submit your questions on the iPad.
My name is Murphy.
Hey, Murphy.
Were you born in Ireland?
My mummy was born in...
Oh, I see.
Where are you from?
I'm from Central Illinois.
Ah, where's your ancestors from?
My father's name was Patrick Murphy. He was born on St. Paddy's Day.
Oh.
And he had 9 children with a woman whose parents had come from Italy.
Oh, look at that.
Called it Gaelic and Garlic.
Gaelic and garlic.
And it's not about mysticism.
Yes.
It's not about magic. No, it's about the soul. And it's not surprising at all that you have chosen your way of living. And I want to honor you for that. Thank you very much.
Can I hug you?
Pardon?
Can I hug you?
That would be wonderful.
I know there's Q&A and you're coming out to questions. I have to tell you this, you're going to love this. One of my beautiful experiences, when I was questioning who I was to do this work, and I've done so many ceremonies with that, my unworthiness comes up a lot in this medicine work, and I asked who I was to do this work, and the deity that came immediately in what this particular ceremony was the Queen of the Fairies. And she said in the most Gaelic, gorgeous accent, she said, "Hey, Sand, come with me. I'll show you your land, and I'll show you the shrooms, and I'll show you the leprechauns. And there is no pot of gold, because it's not about finances or money, is it? It's about love and connection." So she was a really strong medicine for me that day, and finally burnt away that I can honestly be here with these medicines. So thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Hi, I'm also from Central Illinois, but I'm wondering if you can speak more about integration and maybe the key elements of integration or what should be considered, and how, if you know when that process of integration is complete.
I don't think you ever know. Do you want to stay at the mic in case you have another question?
Can you explain what integration is?
Let me explain that. And I don't know if you ever really can fully land it, because then there's an ending and it's never ending. And I would say for integration, because the neuroplasticity that awakens us in our physiology in a medicine journey, there is a window. Some say it's 90 days, some say it's a little bit longer. And if we can use that window of opportunity to pivot, do a teaching around the pivot, when the trigger comes in, and they will, because this medicine doesn't take everything away from us. The medicine actually opens us to remember. So integration is the day of the medicine. You start integrating all of the wisdom that you got, then you're integrating it the next day for weeks, months and years. And you can, in my experience, I'm still integrating 25 years later from some of the most powerful experiences I had 20 years ago that I couldn't make sense of at the time, wasn't aware enough inside of my own body what that teaching was being taught to me by the medicine. But on the whole, in integration, I would say it really is the most powerful part of a medicine journey. And integration is being resourced with resources. For me, I offer breath work, meditation, guided visualizations, journaling, online materials that I've written to support the person coming out of a journey. You never leave them. You're always checking in with them. So it's regular check-ins. It's reading materials. It's making sure that they have a place to come back to when they're having a dream or something happens to them. And it's, and is this the medicine? Have I just made this up? So that they're always in that inquiry, constantly in that inquiry. And then massive celebration. If we don't celebrate every time we pivot away from an old pattern somewhere, if we don't bring it back, especially as women, back to our body and say, oh my God, you did that. There's your mother on the phone again, and she's going to trigger the shit out of you. And it's, here she is, and you feel it. And we teach this, it's like you're going to feel it because those patterns don't dissolve. The patterns are always there. So when that trigger comes up and the memory comes up to remind you, you have a choice in that moment. And I'm not a particularly religious person, but God, universe, life, she gave us free will. And I talk about this as sometimes you're going to feel like your body's been bitten by 1,000 mosquitoes and you want to itch it so bad because that old pattern is there and you're going and you're in it and you're boiling and the trigger is there, and it's like in that moment with resources and somatic practices, put your arms around yourself. Go get some ice in your hands right now. Pattern break. You have a choice. What are you going to choose? Remember, in the medicine and in integration, we work on personal workbooks, where integration pattern and resources work for you, and let's keep going with that. That didn't work. Let's try something new. Has that answered your question?
Yes.
Do you want to say something about it yourself?
I think personally, I feel like there's a lot of energy put into the ceremony. My experience has been that I feel like I've sucked at the integration part. And that's the most important piece, I think. And so I find that with some practitioners, it's overlooked. And then I feel like I'm not fully getting all of the benefit out of the work if I don't focus enough on integration. So I was curious to see from your experience what has worked and been successful and what's recommended.
Yeah. I know people might not like this, but I do make myself available 24/7. You can text me at 3 o'clock in the morning. I won't respond at 3 o'clock in the morning. But those are the times when things happen in the dream space or in the dark nights again, and something will happen. So I think between 3 to 6 months for me, depends on the person for their time allowance as well. But 3 to 6 months can really get the stabilizers on, and then you can go, it's like you can go by yourself now, unless you're moving through a lot of layers of trauma, and then one bicycle journey isn't enough.
Yeah. Thank you so much for
Thank you so much for your question.
Sand mentioned a window after a journey when change is more possible, and the science is starting to catch up to what guides have observed for decades. Research out of Johns Hopkins and other labs has shown that psychedelics can temporarily reopen what neuroscientists call a critical period, a stretch of heightened neuroplasticity, similar to what happens in early childhood development, when the brain is unusually open to forming new patterns. That research is strongest in animal studies so far. We don't yet have precise human data on how long the window stays open or maximizes it. What we do have is a consistent pattern across integration therapists. The days and weeks immediately following a journey tend to be when new behavior is easiest to install. That's an argument for treating integration as the actual work, not an optional follow-up, which is exactly the point Sand keeps returning to during this 2025 salon and remains in the zeitgeist today.
I've had a couple of journeys now. It is hard with the integration because I did a psilocybin facilitator training in Oregon, and they talk about 2 integration sessions, which does not feel like enough. Yeah. What are your thoughts on doing integration either with these tools or with a different integration coach who wasn't there at the medicine journey?
I'd say 60% of people that end up finding me, just my personal experience, have a therapist. And if they do, I like to meet the therapist and we have a 3-way call. Every therapist has come into that place and they are grateful. They learn when they give the incredible intel and data about their client with love and permission, of course. We work with the resources that we have around us. So if you've got a therapist, we work with the therapist. If it's the husband, if it's the wife, it's your community, find out who the resources are in that person's life to make sure that they are set up for long-lasting, sustainable change. These patterns don't go away. They're there. We do work in resources that you can come back to. Community is everything. Community can be family, community can be friends, but if you can be in community and then you've got the people who are traveling with you and journeying with you, and even your own peer group in the facilitation. And I agree, for the record, I don't think 2 integration sessions can do it, depending on what the intention was and the level of trauma or situations and circumstances and challenges that this person is carrying into the medicine. Then that is, I call it the tail. And it's like some have a longer tail of integration, some have a shorter tail of integration. But it depends on what the presenting issues are they're bringing into the medicine.
I can ask you it later, but as someone who's thinking about becoming a practitioner, I hear lots of different opinions on when are you ready to do this on your own, which I feel like I would never be ready. Yeah. You've done hundreds of things, so I don't know if that's a question for now or later, but thank you.
Thank you. You can stay there, you can go back to your seat, and your medicine that you're bringing, what's your name? Stacey, it shows me that your medicine of humility, saying, am I ever ready? And again, for women in particular, the statistics around this is when a woman sees an advert for a job, if we don't fit 97% of that job, we won't apply. And our brothers on this planet go, 12%? Yeah, I can do this. I'm going to get in a little bit. I don't think it's 12%, but it's not much more than 30%. But I think it's about 37%. So women tend to be the more reluctant gender coming to the station. And again, our BIPOC communities, LGBTQ communities, feel all the time, I'm underrepresented here. And then again, it's another barrier. Who am I to come to the table? Who am I? And if it is called to you, if this medicine calls to you, then find somebody to believe in you and say, girl, boy, they fucking love you. Just there's something that's moving inside you. So step in there with humility, step in there and be guided, find a mentor, find somebody that can work alongside and support you. We don't come into this work at all in any other way other than like deep humility. I had a Peruvian medicine woman that I was an apprentice with her for 70 ceremonies for 16 years. So I never in a million years thought I would end up doing this work. I was a social worker. I was holding people and rocking people and crying with people and all the things. You're on the earth, you've got dirt in your mouth, you've got spit and blood, spit, tears. Beautiful purging happens and you hold somebody in that as they're going through their incredible journey of releasing something that no longer wants to be in their body.
Hi, Sand. Hi, April. I had a question about how some of this work interfaces with business, because a lot of people are being called to the work and have learned more about the potential of psychedelic medicine in the last few years. I work with fungi a lot, so this is psilocybin focused. This is so situated in community and place and lived wisdom and ancestral connection, and like fungi, mycelium, they're so relational, right? Like it is such a connecting force everywhere. And people are really trying to figure out in biotech pharma, like what to abstract or what to pull out and create a business model around with varying success, right? Like it's hard. From your perspective, you've been steeped in this healing work for so long. Do you think there's a way forward for psychedelic capitalism? Do you see anybody doing it right?
Do I see anybody doing it right? I do. I would say a lot of the people I see doing it would never be on a stage like this anyway. They're so deeply buried and won't come out. I see people doing it right in the rainforests of Ecuador. I see people doing it right in the jungles of Peru. I see the right people doing it in Dublin. I see the right people doing it all over the world. And I have to say, obviously, we have great teachers as well and leaders who also took a lot of risk. And then they're the big kind of names that are out there, like Rick Doblin, who's been a pioneer in this work. And he's been held on a pedestal and he's been completely shamed as well. I think anybody that puts yourself out there, you've got to be open to everything. I honestly believe in, April said the word at the beginning, I didn't catch your name.
Her name's Renee.
Renee. My mum's Renee. So close, the same spelling, different ways. We've got to have faith. We can't do this work and not get touched without having faith. We see things that just are beyond anything we could ever fathom in our brain, in our 3D reality. And so I have to have faith that these medicines have come to our humanity at this time for bigger reasons than we're really figuring out right now. Is anybody doing it right? I don't know. There's probably more people doing it wrong and fucking up because it's still new, isn't it, for so many of us. So we're all pioneers in this place, I think. So we're going to fuck up more than we'll get it right. But we are going to make mistakes, but that's how we learn. I hope we learn from every shitty mistake that we make. I hope that we put it somewhere into being and into practice, and it's applied so that the next generations, we can keep going with this and it doesn't get completely shut down when it's just finding its way again here. Renee?
I would say you could look at the regulated cannabis industry and see that there needs to be reverence for the plant as nature intended. And Frankensteining these medicines is not going to work with human bodies long term.
My question is about a scenario that I've been on both sides of. Personally, you have a journey similar to the discussion around integration. You leave that journey and you go back to your normal life and your people, your tribe, and so on, who might not be as invested, experienced, or motivated around plant medicine. So you have this feeling, you have these revelations, you have these epiphanies, and you are ready to share with them. But they're not going to necessarily buy in with as much enthusiasm and support. I've also been on the other side of this, where someone comes to you and they are totally lit up and you're just, that's great. Do you have any guidance on how to help the people who are in your tribe, your circle, meet you where you're at? And or if you are in a scenario where you're not where they're at, to then go meet your people?
It leads into like integration, you said, Patrick. Again, lovely Irish saying here. You don't go and give your pearls to swine. Meaning whatever the gifts that you were given, be really mindful of how you share them. Because out of context and content, then people really can't place what you're talking about. So we spend a lot of time in that integration at the end of the medicine and in the first few sessions in integration, really helping people understand the language that they might want to use. Because, of course, it's like a lot of people want to share with their beloveds immediately that they've just seen the Holy Grail and they've had a 6-year-old or their daughter, hey, husband, our 5-year-old daughter pulled my 2-year-old child out of me and he has no reference for that. So we have to slow it down. So we work with people in terms of the language and how to frame that so that it can be understood and it can land, because the last thing you want is bringing your pearls out and it getting slammed down. And then the second one, when people come to somebody and you startled headlights, and I've seen a lot of that, and at a part that was a purist part, that if anybody didn't come to this work that didn't feel it was reverent, I had a bit of a judgment about that. So I had to do a lot of work around not having that judgment. And I would hear people talking about the medicine in a particular way of what I'd call bro language. And it's, wow, they're not in their bodies right now, but yet they're speaking in that place. So I had judgment about that. But what I've come to understand is that's their language for in that moment that they could speak. Because nobody was helping them to land the language to say it any differently. So my judgment really it was like a biopsy really of only taking a very small piece of what they were saying, judging that, not understanding. That's all they had. So I feel that there's a lot of responsibility on the facilitator to be able to be with this part of the inquiry of how are you going to explain this when you get home? And in line of that, with the different works that I do, we have a letter for the women that we work with to send to their partner that says, when your wife or partner or friend comes home, these are some of the ways that you can help support her, he or they. And that letter has got so much beautiful feedback of, I feel that you're taking care of the person that's come to the ceremony, and I feel you're taking care of me. And that's really gone a long way. And we actually only adopted that about 2 years ago. So, and we've had profound insight from that.
I also think that sounds like a great approach as well, because I think as someone who is supporting and a partner or relative or whatever of someone who's had an experience, you're trying to understand and meet them where they're at, but also bridge who they were, and that is like a black box. So the way you describe the letter is beautiful. Thank you.
That's why the science is important. I was talking to someone last night who's on the front row and has beautiful medicine that you can learn about at the merch table. And she has a background in transcendental meditation, which I studied about 14 years ago because there were over 600 studies that showed that it made an impact on your physical and mental health, a positive impact. There was no other type of meditation that could offer that type of proof. And so to be able to take proof to someone that you love that this is good, this will help, is one of the reasons why science is so important for people who don't quite get it. I'm going to read a few of these questions. I've been waiting to have a guided experience in Seattle, but I can't find one. Any insight on approaching this? Someone recommended Psychedelic Passage. There's also a website that is broken up by city, region, and people. They're not vetted, but people do post their offering there. I'm also happy to talk to anybody and make recommendations. You can reach out to me afterwards, and I'll let you know, or we can communicate later. What does it mean to be prepared for a medicine ceremony? It's a lot there. Mindset, get your head right. If you go into a journey and you're not quite feeling like it's going to be your best day, you might want to postpone your journey. You need to, really. May not just be the right time, but there's a lot of work that goes into that. And then the next question is, what resources have been most helpful for you in cultivating your path as a guide? So I don't know if we're going to be able to get to these questions, but we may be able to answer them on social media later. Would you like to ask your question?
Hi, I'm Kayla, and my question is, how did you find the teachers that you found? And as far as medicine, is it appropriate to take certain medicines that are very culturally specific to groups of people, particularly if they are spiritual, religious, and then they are widely desired? It's not necessarily been really healthy for the earth, for religious and spiritual communities. So do you protect it, and how do you feel the medicines that you work with, how do you feel like you have reverence for that, or how do you choose what feels right and resonant for you and help others discern that as well?
I don't work with ayahuasca. I do not work with those medicines at all. I work with the medicines of remember my fairy guide. Those are my Celtic roots, so I feel very connected in my ancestral lineage, working with psilocybin in that way, and MDMA and LSD. I don't work with any of those medicines, but your question points to, which is what Stacey was saying as well, is when are you ready? So in that makeup, if you're being called to this work, why? And why are you called to this work? And what are the medicines that you feel are calling you? And then to me, do ceremony with those medicines and talk to them over time. I'm called to you. Tell me why you are so alive in me. Tell me why I feel so connected to you. Find the resonant field inside of me of having something here that I believe that I'm being called to. Is it me? Is it my imagination? Is it my ego? Where am I here? And in terms of like misappropriation, cultural misappropriation, I would never touch a medicine that is damaging to the earth or damaging to a group of people, ever.
How did you find...
The first teacher I tried to find as I was having these visitations, I went knocking on the Catholic church door, as a good Catholic girl would, right? So I knocked on the door and I went, Father O'Reilly, For fuck's sake, I'm getting all these visitations. 5 years every fucking night for 5 years. And he went, shh, we won't be telling anybody about that right now, will we, son? So he took me for a long walk around the church. But he was brilliant, and he said, I can't help you, but I know somebody who can. And so he introduced me to my first teacher, who was a druid. And he helped me to find all my Celtic ancestors and find out what was inside of me there. For many years with that particular teacher, I didn't know eyes could cry as much as they could cry. So it was just the most profound connection to be with somebody that could take something inside of me that I hadn't made any sense of whatsoever, pull it out, colour it in Technicolor, slow it down, go forward, go backward, go inside, go outside, and take me through my ancestral lineage and my ancestral wisdom with the Celtic ancestors. It was profound. Yeah, it was really cool.
I know we need to wrap up, but if you want to give 3 ways to be prepared for ceremony and 3 resources that have helped you as a guide.
3 ways to be prepared. April said the first one, which is setting, which we know. It's the mindset, and then the setting. And setting tends to be seen as the environment that you're sitting in. It's so much more than that. Find your teachers and the people who are going to sit with you and ask them questions. How long have you been working with this medicine? How many people have you taken through this medicine? You want to find the facilitator who has been as close as he, she, they can be to the presenting issue that you are bringing to the table. And you don't have to have the trauma or the life experience of the people you're working with, but you want to have some like really profound tuning fork of resonance that you understand trauma or you understand creativity in the way that they're presenting. So do your due diligence, find your facilitators, and shop around, guys. Go to one and then go, okay, that's a set of questions. Then go and find somebody else and see whether you resonate with that teacher, with that facilitator. And if you don't and something feels off, don't do it. Really, don't do it. Try not to do it too quickly with friends or spouses or partners. Sometimes it can be great. But if you're coming into the work at the beginning, just be careful with that one because you're in the medicine and they're not. That can sometimes be a little bit tricksy. So talk to me. If that's somebody in the audience that want more information on that, come talk to me. How do you prepare? You can't fully prepare for your journey. You really can't because we live in the world of uncertainty and enough variables in medicine work that how much you prepare, you will never fully 100% be prepared for your journey and be prepared for that as much as you possibly can, meaning how much can you sit in the uncertainty. But underscoring April's point is please prepare as much as you can with due diligence, the right facilitator, the right time. My sisters, your moon time is massive. So look at your moon time and make sure if we've got IUDs and things like that and you haven't got a moon time, haven't had one for 10 years, then you really need to know about that. You need to know how you're going to find different places your body is going to release and where you're going to find your sacred waters.
The luteal phase is the most ideal time you take large doses of psychedelics because your hormones are the most balanced at that time.
3 resources being coming guide. Pray, meditate, sit with the medicine in your hand and don't ingest her, but get to know her. And do that over days or weeks or months until you start a communication with her of her wisdom. That really. And if prayer isn't your language, invocation, prayer, be with it. Find those places inside your body that is saying yes, and find those places in your body that's scared shitless as well, because they both exist at the same time.
Sand and I both touched on cycle timing in this recording, and I want to be straight with you about where the science actually stands. There's early research suggesting hormonal fluctuation across the menstrual cycle affects serotonin sensitivity, which theoretically could change how a psychedelic experience lands. Some practitioners point toward the ovulatory window as more stable. I referenced the luteal phase tonight, and you'll hear that recommendation elsewhere too. The honest answer is that we don't have controlled human studies mapping this precisely yet. And anyone speaking with total certainty about ideal timing is ahead of the data. What we do have is decades of pattern recognition, my own decade of watching this community, and enough anecdotal overlap to take seriously. If you're planning a journey, track your own cycle and how you feel across it. That's data too. It just hasn't been published yet.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for staying later. Thank you
so
for your
much.
thoughtful questions.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone.
What Sand offered tonight isn't a technique. It's 5 decades of pattern recognition condensed into an evening. And I don't think that kind of knowing shows up in a lot of places anymore. The through line for me was integration, not the journey itself, not the peak, not the vision, the unglamorous work that happens in the weeks and months after, when you're back in your regular life trying to hold on to what you remembered without a ceremony, room to hold you up. I also can't stop thinking about the trauma of overdoing. If you're a woman who prides herself on never dropping the ball, sit with that one for a while. It's not a flaw. It's a nervous system that learned stillness wasn't safe, and unlearning that takes longer than any single medicine ceremony can offer. None of this is a quick fix. What it is a framework for coming home to parts of yourself that got buried a long time ago with company along the way. That's the whole point of Women in the Wild, and it's why I keep building this. Join me September 13th for the next chapter. That's the whole point of the community I'm building through Psychedelic Salon and through small gatherings at my home called Women in the Wild. Town Hall's next salon starts October 8th, and tickets are live this week. And the next Women in the Wild gathering here in Seattle is September 12th, also October 3rd and November 11th this fall. You can find me on Substack at aprilpride.substack.com. You can find me on Instagram at aprilpridecreates and on YouTube at aprilpridecreates. You can check out my website, aprilpride.com. Thank you so much for joining me. If you think the information on this show could help someone else, please forward the episode. Take care.